Pleasant good evening to veteran journalist Ken Ali, no stranger to the Observer. Special good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you, Mikey, and your many listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much. I want to get right into the meat of it. On one of your writings, you said that the employers in this country are not required to report the termination of fewer than 5 workers at a time. And that is laid out in Section 4 of the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act. And of course, many may not have been following that, and they have been terminating, if in groups. For some reason, this is being not looked at by the Ministry of Labor or is being circumvented. So when the finance minister boasted that of a 3.7% unemployment rate, was he telling us the truth?
Well, he is probably giving us the data as he has it. Now, you're correct. The Severance Benefits Act indicates that if you terminate 5 workers and fewer, you are not required to inform the Ministry of Labor. And that happens many times in the workplace, 5 workers and fewer. Now, the government is saying, and the Minister of Finance stated in the budget address, that unemployment rate is 3.7%. Now, I went and investigated this, Mikey, because the anecdotal evidence does not suggest that we have 3.7% unemployment. And we could cite many examples. Look at the number of people who went to the shopping mall for jobs in Guyana. Yeah. And outside of that, the informal sector, a lot of people are hustling to make a living in the energy sector, which employed 22,500 in 2015.
Yeah, and let's not forget before Guyana, the cruise ship jobs. We had that before.
Yeah. And you see, on the street corner, I know you're a man on the ground like I am, and you see people begging for arms and so on. A number of them are migrants from Venezuela, but a number of others are Trinidadians, and a lot of people are doing menial jobs. There are more vendors than there have been. I don't know if people have noticed that. And what is called the informal sector, a lot of people are doing small ends and so on to keep things going. And so the government is in a sort of fool's paradise. Now, the upshot of all of that is that it is suffering for the people. I have looked, and I do that every so often, every few months, at a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet on the cost of food in particular, essential food items. Between 2016 and now, there's a grocer who sends it to me. And I have seen that the cost of some essentials, I'm not talking about luxuries and so on, have gone up by almost 100%. An average is about 60%. So you're talking about unemployment, underemployment, and you're talking about the cost of food has gone up. There have been 5 fuel price increases that has sent up the cost of transportation in every area, whether you're a taxi or a maximan or a commuter or whatever. The cost has gone up. The cost of transportation has gone up. The cost of pharmaceuticals have gone up. Now, we have a monopoly running the pharmaceutical importation business. Yes. And in the 2 periods since it became a monopoly, they announced profit increases of 49% increase and 55% increase. Now you have to ask how they were able to make more increase. You make that increased profit. And it clearly is because they have central prices in an incremental way. All of that is happening while public sector workers are getting 4%. Doesn't begin to cover the increased cost of food.
And Mr. Ali, that's the thing about statistics. I mean, depending on who has it in their possession, they can try to use it however best to manipulate. But basically what you broke down for us is the reality that we face on a daily basis. Even so, the health minister, Gayelle, Singh, made an announcement over the weekend as far as, mental health care. He spoke about suicides, depression. And when one takes that in consideration, is the administration so out of touch not to understand what is happening on the outside, on the ground, with the citizenry?
Well, I think you asked the most relevant question that could be asked in Trinidad and Tobago today, whether in fact this government is so out of touch with all that we're seeing with respect to crime. We've seen about gun hauls, but there are no arrests being made, and the continuing situation with crime across the country, home invasions, and so on, the cost of living we've been talking about, and the increase in starvation and malnutrition. UN agencies, UNICEF and UNDP and so on have been reporting increased malnutrition malnutrition in the country. More people are slipping under the poverty line. So all of that indicates that the quality of life has slipped dramatically over the last few years. Whether or not the government is conscious of it, I can't see how it could be a government and not be conscious of it. Maybe there are deep pockets of poverty that the government, in areas where the government is not fully conscious of.
And again, it has to be something that they know that we don't know, or we're not feeling on a daily basis. I mean, where there are people who are trying to make ends meet.
The government has extended the social welfare safety net, as they call it. Yeah, they're giving more money to the underprivileged and so on. I don't know how far that is going. Maybe the government is only aware and conscious of those people and not fully conscious of the people who have suffered from floods and on climate change and the impact it has had on agricultural production, for example. And all the other sectors, the minister told us agriculture is contributing less than 2% of GDP, and that's because of the government. Mikey, our food import bill now is $7.3 billion.
Yeah.
In 2015, it was $4 billion, and $4 billion is too much. Now our budget deficit is $5.1 billion. So if we were to grow some more food on the 80,000 acres of land left by Caroni, we could feed ourselves and bring down and eliminate the deficit. So all of these are critical issues, whether the government looks at them. But I think you look at the body language of the ministers, including the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, and it comes back to the question you ask, whether or not they're conscious of the quality of life in the country.
Well, I've come to that. I've come to the reality that I believe that they're pushing the envelope as far as it can go to see what may be the breaking point. Because in this country, and based on what you wrote, more than a third of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are living in poverty, and things are getting worse. We're talking about electricity rate hikes. We're talking about property tax. We're talking about people who simply cannot make ends meet. And in the midst of all of this, the bank is making a profit. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have just heard that the central block of the Port of Spain Hospital would be ready in March 2025. So they could say, here's what we're doing for healthcare. They've sent up the minimum wage. They said they're going to buy more vehicles for the police. So they're hoping that would make a dent on the issues of crime and poverty, and they said the water problem would be fixed in some months' time. So they seem to have created the reverse engineer. They said that we will get all of these issues addressed. Now, in addition to that, they have put more money into what is called the PSIP for infrastructural works, over 1,000 bridges and roads and so on, work to be done to create jobs, especially for small contractors. Now, there's a government that has a problem with implementation. You know, even the Point Forward highway, which is said is completed, is not being completed. It's just sections of that highway that has been completed. So they have a problem with implementation. But I don't know if they're really conscious of what is happening with, what is happening is a growing underclass. A lot of small businesses have shut down, small and medium-sized business, and we've lost the middle class. I've been saying that, and you and I have been talking about that for a long time. We've lost the middle class. People are seeking to marry. I hear of people
You're breaking up there. If you want to stay still, if you're moving around, you're breaking up a bit.
I'm saying that we've lost the middle class.
Totally wiped out. Totally wiped out, Mr. Ali, totally wiped out. Yeah. But my thing is, when I say push the envelope, there's always going to be a group of citizens who are going to rationalize mismanagement, corruption, evil deeds. They're always going to rationalize that. We know that for a fact. But when you look at the conversation, the national conversation, and you being a veteran journalist, it's not always what people say or what they write, but it's also what you can take away from their body language and what you can read in as far as picking sense from nonsense. This whole issue about the opposition leader and the rumors about a stroke and having toes cut off, and she did reply, and she said that she noted that Dr. Rowley, Prime Minister, was back in Trinidad and Tobago after the summit meeting in Canada, so she's hoping for a reply, as she noted that crime continues to distress the nation. Was she telling us indirectly that, as far as she's concerned, this whole health issue and rumors was nothing more than a distraction?
I think so. I also think it's malicious. We hear these things from time to time. She may have, in my view, responded to and reacted too much, but she was correct to say, what about the crime talks? I also want to add to that mix, what about the Prime Minister reporting to us on that conference in Canada?
In Canada.
Where Prime Minister Trudeau announced a number of measures. But we export to Canada less than $1 billion a year. So all of this thing is not we are not very competitive in terms of what we export to Canada. There is a lopsided balance of trade. We buy more from Canada than things. So all of this is a lot of talk, but the Prime Minister has not come down to tell us in nuts and bolts, here are the benefits we're going to get out of that arrangement with Canada. And maybe some people have pressed him on that, but that is a matter in which he should be held accountable. And Mikey, I feel there's something you should report to the nation on in Parliament. Because I attended this 2 or 3 day conference in Canada. And the facts are, here's what we're going to benefit, how it will help the manufacturing sector and the seasonal workers and so on and so forth. But he has not reported to that, and we are on that, and neither have we heard anything with respect to the crime discussions.
Yeah, and we did have Rodney Childs on, who is the UNC Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he made it quite clear that what's happening in between Guyana and Venezuela is something that we need to keep an eye on, and we need to see how best we can make some sort of input to resolve it with the utmost urgency and diplomacy.
I agree very much with MP Charles for various reasons. One, it is a CARICOM issue, and CARICOM really never provides leadership. But here's a CARICOM issue that involves a member of CARICOM. More than that, one wonders, we don't know all the facts yet, whether Venezuela is trying to manipulate all of this President Maduro in order to win the election, because he has promised the American authorities that he would have a free and fair election. He could lose in a free and fair election. Now, if he manipulates the election, in other words, if it's not free and fair, the American authorities could go back on this permission they have given to monetize the Dragon gas field. And if they go back on that, it means that we've lost that deal that we've had in terms of monetizing that for our benefit and getting natural gas or petrochemical and LNG companies. So I think we have a valued stake in this issue, and CARICOM must provide leadership. But Mikey, CARICOM is another dead horse, So I don't know what we'll get out of this, but the new president of CARICOM, his Prime Minister Roosevelt of Dominica, should play a leadership role in this matter.
I believe so. I mean, there are too many international players. I mean, we know quite well who Venezuela is laying down in their political bed. We know the names. We know the countries. Mm-hmm. And if you take in consideration all that is taking place across the world, this could be something very serious.
But Mikey, I just want to add one aspect to that Venezuela situation, and that is, I spoke about the benefits to us with respect to the Dragon gas deal, but there's another direct benefit. If there's stability in Venezuela, we wouldn't have all these illegal migrants, these refugees coming here, and we have lots of them, tens of thousands of them who are struggling all over the place. They will stay in their country and help build their country, and in the course of that, they will not create the instability they've created here. Some of them are struggling to make ends meet. Some have gone into crime. Some are into sex trafficking, illicit activities, and so on and so forth. So it is in our direct interest to have stability in Venezuela. And our Prime Minister should speak on this, and in particular, CARICOM should do so.
Yeah. Any closing comments? Quickly, go ahead.
Well, there's so many things happening, Mikey. I look forward to the Prime Minister lead the discussions on crime. One of these stories, before I go, and in fact, let me tell you, many listeners, lots of my writings are on counterpunchtt.com and in the Sunshine newspaper. And the Prime Minister is taking a sort of hubris syndrome approach to the crime discussion, to send his underlings to take part in it and report to him. There's a matter. He is head of the National Security Council. He is the Prime Minister, and he must lead the crime discussions himself.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We're checking in with you, and best of luck to you and your entire team. Yeah. Keep up the good writing, and we'll highlight it right here on The Observer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mikey. Best wishes.